my people, how you doing? Hope you're having a fantastic damn Thursday and welcome back to the channel. Obviously it is Throwback Thursday and now I've decided to do a deep dive into the 2016-17 season, and of course the champions of that season were Chelsea, so we'll be looking to replicate and recreate Antonio Conte's back five system with Chelsea in that season. Now of course it goes without saying we are also including a defensive setup and tactic to try and obviously repel the opposition when they are attacking you tenfold, so stay for that as well, and let's hop on straight into the video. Now with the formation going forward, of course the balanced game plan that we will be going with, I've gone with a 3-4-3. I haven't done too much, I've just dropped the two central midfielders ever so slightly further down. It does help with the defensive outlets of the side, as well as obviously I've also dropped the two wider midfielders in line with those central midfielders. So it is one goalkeeper, three centre backs, two central midfielders, two wider midfielders, two wingers, and then of course one striker. So now moving on to the tactics, and I've gone with a custom tactical vision because I don't think that there is particularly a set of tactical visions that can, you know, more or less replicate what Chelsea were trying to do under Antonio Conte. They take different elements out of all of them, rarely in certain moments. So I think custom best suits this team. The defensive style, however, is set to drop back, of course, maintaining their structural shape and making sure it's very hard for the opposition to try and catch them out more times than not. And like I say, a very defensively sound team, this one. As for the team width, it is set to 25, forcing the opposition out wide to those wider regions, and in turn, playing them into the hands of your wider midfielders slash your wingbacks. So, very good at doing so, preventing those crosses being whipped into the box, making sure that there's insufficient space in between the lines for the opponent to try and play into, and try and play through at times. The depth is set to a mid-block, I've set it to 55. I think it more or less does replicate what they're trying to do, and obviously, when you switch to your defensive game plan, I think that obviously it will slightly drop a bit more, trying to create that low block approach, making it very, very hard to try and break down at times. So, like I said, Antonio Conte's Chelsea side were a lot better defensively than what they were with their attacking outlet. They just had really good superstars in their attack that could string together a few passes and then inevitably unlock the opposition's defense. Now, in terms of the offense, the builder play is set to balance. Now, of course, they were very well known for their ability to turn the ball over and transition into the attacking phase of things, so you do want that fast builder, but at the same time, when you are playing against the low block teams, you do want to have the ability for your centre-backs to show for the ball, the likes of David Luiz, of course, him collecting the ball and then driving around into the midfield, linking up a bit more with them, of course, Azpilicueta also doing so in certain moments. You want that to come into effect, as well as the ability to play that long ball in behind, trying to supply the likes of Hazard, Pedro, or Willian if you're playing him on the wing, or even the likes of Diego Costa making those runs in behind. You want to have the ability for your centre-backs as well as your midfielders in certain moments to play that ball forward. The midfielders I'm talking about is the likes of Cesc Fabregas, of course, that long ball into the likes of Diego Costa practically won them the league at one point. It was just well telegraphed more times than not between those two. So you want to have all those dynamic approaches included into your game plan. So playing out from the back, yes. The quick transitions, yes. The ability to play that long ball into the forward line, yes. And more or less balanced approach does allow you to do so. As for the chance creation, direct passing, I did mention before, you want to try and supply your runners who will be making those runs in behind, the likes of Hazard, Pedro, Willian, Diego Costa. Of course, they do have other elements to their game, and that does come into the side with the instructions, but more times than not, you want them exploiting the opposition backline as well as your wingbacks. Don't forget the likes of Marcus Alonso as well as Victor Moses. They were consistently looking to try and press that opposition backline, making those runs in behind, looking to try and stretch them as much as possible. As for the width, it is set to 75. And this does allow for your wingbacks as well as your wingers to try and hug those wider areas, trying to stretch the opposition, open up a bit more space for your midfield, as well as your inside forwards, as well as your striker in certain moments, allowing them to have a bit more space between the lines and looking to try and work their best magic in trying to attack the opponents. As for players in the box, I have gone with it set to 7. Now, more times than not, it will be your front three, as well as one of your wingbacks or your wider midfielders making that advance run into the box. Very seldom was it a Conte or a Matic, but nonetheless, they did also sometimes, like very far and few, but sometimes make that extra lung-busting run into the attacking third. As for corners and free kicks, as per always, I've set it to 4. Now moving on to the instructions, of course, the likes of Thibaut Courtois, not really well known for playing out from the back or being a sweeper keeper, was adequate in the ability to pick a pass and find one of his back three teammates, of course, the defenders, but again, not really well known for that. But I will say this, of course, he's very long, lanky, claims those crosses very well, was a very, probably the best goalkeeper in the league in that season, alongside David De Gea. But yes, comfort crosses is essential, obviously looking to try and claim those aerial balls that are whipped into the box, and just alleviating the stress on the back line at times. As for the likes of your back three, all of them have very different roles. We'll start off with the likes of Disasi now. Disasi playing the likes of Azpilicueta. So in certain moments, Azpilicueta would join up with the midfield, looking to try and whip in crosses from that right-hand flank. And in order to try and do that, he would also try and help the wing back in Victor Moses out, trying to, add an extra person to pass to in those wider regions of the field, and trying to create overloads, specifically overloads in that right-hand side, creating that midfield diamond shifted to the right. Now, in order to do that, I've gone with overlap as well as step up, and this does get him a bit more aggressive and allow him to be slightly higher up the field when in the ball to play as well. As for the likes of Silva, who's playing the role of David Luiz, of course, the man that would collect the ball off of the goalkeeper or one of the centre-backs and then progress it forward, drive it forward, especially when Chelsea played against a lower block. It would allow him a bit more freedom to progress into the midfield and create overloads, as well as having his unique passing range and trying to supply your forwards with that ball over the top. And then finally, we've got the likes of Gary Cahill, or potentially the likes of John Terry, of course, the Chelsea captain and whatnot. You want to have him be a bit more structurally sound. So more or less the base set of instructions with the interception set to conservative. So not always looking to try and lunge in for a tackle and all that. Looking to try and hold his line, hold his position, and hold the structure of the defensive back line more times than not. Of course, you do have two other centre-backs that will be looking to try and work a bit more on the offensive side of things. So your left-sided centre-back will be the composed of the three. Onto your wing-backs / wider midfielders now, who will inevitably be playing as a wing-back. So their chance creation is set to stay wide, and by the way, both of them have the same set of instructions. Both Marcus Alonso and Victor Moses, more times than not, did the same thing on either flank, of course. So stay wide is essential, holding the width down each side of the field, getting in behind, looking to consistently exploit the opposition with those runs in behind them. And then the support on crosses, I've gone with it set to balance, because sometimes they would look to break into the box themselves and get a shot off or attack the back post cross. Other times looking to hang on the edge of the area and look to try and supply another or a secondary opportunity. As for the opportunities, I've gone with it set to aggressive, because obviously you are very compact in the central area, so you will be funneling the offense of the opposition out to those wide areas, and you need your fullbacks to be on point with it, being very aggressive and imposing on the opposition. Now, as for the positioning freedom, I've gone with it set to stick to position. You don't really want them having the free roll and drifting in and out. You want them holding the touchline and maintaining their structure at the back, as well as their ability to stay wide on the touchlines. As you can see here for the likes of Victor Moses / Reece James, he's got the same set of instructions. Now moving on into our midfield, the likes of Conte as well as Matic. Obviously Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez are in those roles, but this was a workhorse midfield, very defensively sound, structurally ready for anything the opposition had to throw at them, and were very, very good with maintaining a very high work rate. So in order to replicate the roles for both Matic and Caicedo, I would suggest you follow with these instructions. So for N'Golo Kante, stay back while attacking, not known for getting forward. Obviously, when Sarri and Lampard and so on went in there, they obviously pushed Kante forward. But with Conte, he said, you know what, we're going to just keep you further back. We're going to use your crazy work rate to try and sweep up in front of the back line more times than not. And it was very, very successful. So stay back while attacking, stay on the edge of the box, looking to try and be a bit more of the outlet ball in terms of alleviating the stress that you are trying to apply on the opposition. And if they, I always say this, but if they do tend to set that low block and it's very hard to break down, pass it back out to your midfield, draw out some of the players, and then fire the ball back in and look for a better opportunity. So your two midfield players, or your double pivots, essentially, they will be that. They'll look to try and alleviate or release some of the stress and the pressure on the opposition, trying to draw them out, and then obviously fire the ball back in. Aggressive interceptions are set to be on for both of them as well, creating that very high work rate that both Matic and N'Golo Kante did implement. And then for the defensive positioning, is set to cover the wing, looking to try and clog those wider areas of the field, looking to try and help the wing backs in certain moments if they have gotten too far forward and they haven't tracked back enough, as well as the positioning freedom is set to stick to position, You don't really want them having a free roll or drifting too far wide on the offensive side of things. You want them to stick to that middle area of the field, and that also does allow you to have a bit more of a contingency plan if you do turn the ball over. They'll be central and ready to attack the opposition with their defensive outlets. As for the likes of Matic now, of course, having a slightly freer role in getting forward. So for the attacking support, I've set it to balance, and like I say, sometimes he did get a bit forward, and I think that season he had around 7 or 8 assists, which was probably his career best if you ask me. But just like with Conte, not getting into the box as much, staying on the edge of the area, looking to potentially pop shots off or rotate the ball when required. Aggressive interceptions are set to be on for him, as well as the ability for him to cover the wing and stick to position. Now moving on to the left-hand side now with Eden Hazard. Of course, Sterling is playing this role, so he's set to come back on defense. Now this isn't to add an extra layer of defensive pressure, it's to more or less get him to have a deeper starting position with the offensive build-up play. So having him get on the ball sometimes slightly deeper and allowing him to drive at the opposition is what you're trying to do. As for the chance creation though, I've set it to free roam, allowing him to drift all over the field, left, right, center, sometimes picking up the number 10 role, other times drifting and almost playing as a secondary winger on the right-hand side. But inevitably, having him in this free roam role, I make mistakes, but anyway, having him in this role, it did allow him to inevitably exploit the opposition, because essentially, more times than not, they would man mark the daylights out of Eden Hazard, and essentially, if that man had drifted too far wide, he would have a man with him, and inevitably that would open up a lot of space in the opposition's defense and allow Chelsea to try and exploit it. The support runs, I've gone with it set to balanced, allowing him to break in between the defensive backline at times and looking to try and exploit them, yes, but at the same time allowing him to sometimes come a bit shorter, link up a bit more with the likes of N'Golo Kante and Matic and the likes of Alonso in certain moments. So you do want him to have a bit more of a dynamic approach to his game plan. As for the interceptions, I've gone with it set to conservative. He wasn't well known for his defensive outlets, and you want to try and preserve him for the offensive side of things, so that's why I've gone with the conservative interceptions. And then the support on crosses, yes, getting into the box is essential for Hazard, but also having him pick up the areas around the edge of the area was essential for his game plan. How he would try and link up a bit more with the likes of Costa from outside of the box and then drive in. That's more or less what you're trying to replicate with this. And then finally, we've got the likes of Diego Costa. The support runs, I've set it to balanced. Yes, sometimes having the ability to drift wider in certain areas of the field, but because he is set to target man or target player, he won't drift too far wide at times, which is quite nice. And of course, having the ability to stay central, latch onto the crosses, be a bit more of a link-up player in the central areas of the pitch were quite essential to how Chelsea played. As for the attacking runs, like I said earlier, being a target man, but also having the ability to run in behind, playing off of the shoulder in certain games of the opposition's backline was essential. But because your tactical game plan is set to direct passing, naturally your forward line will look to try and make those runs in behind every now and then. The interceptions is set to aggressive, and this isn't to like show his defensive outlet, it's to show his aggressive mentality, his ability to be a handful for the opposition backline more times than not, the ability to back into them, foul them, hurt them, and more or less aggressive interceptions does get the best out of your striker. As for the defensive support, however, I've set it to stay forward, being more of the outlet ball, and of course because he was a tall, physical, strong player, having the ability to hold it up quite effectively in the transition and then find a running on forward, either the likes of Pedro, Hazard, Willian, whoever. Now moving on to the defensive setup, the contingency plan, if you are looking to try and hold and see out a 1-0 lead, this is more or less what Chelsea would look to set up in, of course. It is the formation of a 5-4-1, of course. Now your wider midfielders do drop into that wing-back role. And essentially it is 1 goalkeeper, 3 centre-backs, 2 wing-backs, 2 central midfielders, 2 wider midfielders, and then of course 1 striker. So for the tactics going forward, there's no real changes to it. Apart from the depth, I've dropped it down to a low block, set to 30. But other than that, there's no other changes to it. Now moving on to the instructions for the defensive game plan, of course, Courtois is set to the same. Whereas your backline, there are major changes, you could say. They are all set to their base set of instructions, looking to try and hold the integrity of that backline more times than not. Now moving on to your wingbacks, of course, both of them are set to the same set of instructions, but they'll have a bit more of a defensive presence to them. So for the attacking runs, I've gone with a balanced attack. So yes, they can get forward if you do have the transition counter, but other times they will try and stay back and try and soak up pressure. For the run type, I've gone with overlap, looking to try and supply the width in this team still. They will still manage to do that. And then as for the defensive positioning, to try and create that aggressive mentality, I've set it to step up. As you can see, for the likes of Victor Moses, he's got the same set of instructions as well. Into your midfield now, the likes of Caicedo and Fernandes, like I said, Conte and Matic. Both of them also have the same set of instructions, so Matic won't not to drift too far forward, but both of them are set to stay back while attacking, stay on the edge of the area for the crosses, aggressive interceptions, creating a very workman-like midfield, and then of course cover the wing and then stick to position. As you can see here for the likes of Matic, she's got the same role as well. Now onto your wingers, your wider midfielders, the likes of Mudryk and Sterling / Pedro and Hazard. So for Pedro on the right hand side, he's set to come back on defense, obviously, just like with the balanced game plan, consistently looking to try and help out the defensive side of things. As for the chance creation, I've gone with it set to a balance width, so allowing him to sometimes cut inside, other times looking to hold the width in the team. And then for the support runs, obviously you are looking to try and counter more times than not, so you do want your forwards, especially Pedro and Willian on the side, to try and make those runs in behind. And then for the interceptions, it's set to aggressive, and the support on crosses is set to get into the box. As for the likes of Eden Hazard, he is set to come back on defense, obviously still maintaining his free roam role, and then the support runs is still set to balance. With his interceptions, the only major thing that has changed along with the support on crosses, of course, set to normal, so he will have a bit more of a defensive outlet to him, and then the support on crosses is set to get into the box, looking to consistently make those runs into the attacking area. Finally, moving on to the likes of Diego Costa, slightly different role for him. Of course, he will be able to latch onto those longer balls because you will be looking to try and spray them a bit more in transition, of course. So the support runs is set to balance still, but the attacking runs is set to mixed, allowing him to be able to get in behind or potentially be a bit more of a target man, or inevitably looking to try and drop off as a false nine and link up at times. Interceptions are set to aggressive still, as well as the defensive support is set to stay forward, still looking to be the out there ball going forward. And there you have it, people. That is how I would replicate Antonio Conte's 2016-17 Premier League winners side into FC24. Of course, if you have enjoyed this, hit that like button, subscribe if you are new. Let me know down below who you would like to see me do for next week Thursday. That'd be fantastic as well. But most importantly, until the next time, I hope you have a damn great day. I'm out.